Welcome everyone to our monthly members and friends meetup. Today we're here to talk about farmers markets as environmental stewards. And we learned from a customer survey that we did a couple of years ago that customers expect farmers markets to be a leader in environmental stewardship. And they look to farmers markets as an example that they and other places can follow. And the Ithaca Farmers Market has done a really good job in leading in this effort. So today we're going to be hearing from Kelly Sauvé from the Ithaca Farmers Market and Judy Ford, who is the Zero Waste Management Program Coordinator. They're going to talk about all that they're doing for environmental stewardship at the Ithaca Farmers Market, and then they'll be able to answer your questions as we go forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and Judy.
Thank you, Diane. Just going to share my screen here. Are you able to see that, Diane and everyone else?
Yep, it's up there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And you even pronounced my name right. My husband heard you in the background. He's like, kudos. So thank you. Well, welcome everyone. And thank you, Diane, for inviting us to be here today. Again, my name is Kelly Sauvé, and I'm the organizational manager for the Ithaca Farmers Market. And I'm really excited to be here today with Judy, who's our Zero Waste Program Coordinator, to share with you what we're doing here in Ithaca. We definitely welcome you as we're going through to throw any of your questions or comments into the chat around maybe what you're doing at your market. Let me share this. I can't see everybody when this is up, and I'm not sure how to really fix that. So, but feel free to throw things into the chat or just interrupt us as we're talking. We'd love to hear, learn from you also while we're here today about what you all are doing or what challenges that you're facing. I'm just going to share a couple of slides and then pass it over to Judy, who's the real magic maker around this initiative. Just to give you all a little context about who we are in Ithaca, we are a cooperative market. We're not a nonprofit. We're not run by the municipality. We're governed by our vendors, which are in number about 150 plus. 60% of our vendors are food. I guess when I say food, I mean agriculture. 20% are artisans and 20% are prepared food vendors, and those are the primary vendors who are participating in our current zero waste initiative. We are a market that has a pavilion, a covered pavilion that we run on Saturdays and Sundays. We also have some satellite markets, but the primary location where we are operating our zero waste is at our Saturday, Sunday markets, which run from April through December. And then we have an indoor market, January through March. So this map kind of just gives you some context in terms of the space that we're occupying and the number of vendors that we're looking at from a week-to-week basis. We have anywhere from 80 to 95, 96 vendors on any given market day. The bottom of this map is sort of the entrance and where our parking lot is. And then the back side of our map is the waterfront trail here in Ithaca. So we have picnic tables, we have lake access where folks are hanging out, eating. And so our prepared food vendors generate quite a bit of waste from folks who are enjoying their food on the waterfront. So as we looked at kind of defining the waste problem that we currently have at market, to give a little bit of historical context on what we've done in the past. In 2008, our market banned plastic bags, so we were trying to reduce waste in that way. And then, of course, there was a wider ban on plastic bags in New York State later on. In 2011, we introduced compostable dishware, which we were buying as a market and selling them at cost to our vendors. In our county, contracted with a private company called Cuba Compost, and we were giving our waste to them. So in a market that currently at the start of this project was filling 2 6 cubic foot dumpsters, back when we were doing compostable dishware, we maybe had about 1 bag of trash for the entire market at the end of the day. But in 2016, it was discovered that a lot of the dishware was not breaking down in the cold compost system. And so that sort of way in which we were able to reduce waste was eliminated. And then, of course, we had a lot of COVID-induced changes. We weren't allowing eating on site at market. And so a lot of folks were using containers that were to be brought home, which generated a lot of waste, thicker waste, clamshell type containers. And then they kind of carried those practices over even when eating on site was reintroduced. And we definitely had to reduce staff capacity to kind of handle the customer education and making sure that people were recycling or composting things as they were leaving the market. We've always tried to recycle with the county, but we know that a lot of that recycling doesn't actually get recycled. We also know that a lot of the soiled recycling doesn't end up getting recycled either because it will contaminate the waste stream. So as we looked towards 2022 and things were starting to get back to a little bit more normal at market, we realized our waste problem had really gotten kind of out of control. We were kind of filling these 2 6-foot cubic dumpsters at least every weekend. We didn't have much in terms of recycling efforts because we couldn't, most of it couldn't be recycled because it was contaminated and we didn't have staff to do decontamination. And so we started to think about how we could approach this problem, and we knew we needed some additional support from the community. Really, our stakeholders are kind of everyone, our vendors, our staff, our customers, but it was a large enough problem that we knew we needed to develop some partnerships to come up with some innovative solutions. Recycling alone wasn't going to fix the problem, and we can't really compost dishware anymore, so what were we going to do? We looked towards our local recycling and materials management, Cornell Cooperative Extension, Master Composters, Zero Waste Ithaca, and kind of started to think about, brainstorm together what we could do at market that would eliminate some of this waste. We applied for a grant through the Park Foundation, and they were really excited about supporting environmental initiatives at the time, and we've been successful in securing another grant this year to continue our zero waste initiative, and the monies that we receive from them are covering some staffing and supplies for this. So Judy Ward was hired last year to really lead this effort in further defining the problem and figuring out how we were going to solve it. So I'm going to turn it over to Judy, who is going to share with you more of the specifics about what we're doing.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate that overview approach. As the Zero Waste Project Coordinator, I kind of have a lot of vertical integration with the project, from helping to write reports to decontaminating the compost to washing dishes. And so it's always really refreshing to get a perspective that's oh, okay, this is why we're doing this. So one of the first things I did at the beginning of last season is we knew the volume of trash, and we knew that Steamboat Landing, the farmers market, is deemed kind of like a destination for travelers. And I was frequently going to the farmers market when I had out of town guests. It's a place to go and enjoy the waterfront. And it can get pretty busy. On a very busy market day, we might have up to 5,000 customers come to the farmers market, and at least half of them are eating food. And that was all being served on single-use disposables. And so it was just a massive amount of trash being generated every weekend. And so I decided to go ahead and open up one of those trash bags and lay it out and look at the composition of closed containers. Kelly, can you move to the next slide? I think I've categorized them in the next slide. Closed containers, open containers, hot cups. This was mid-April. It was still quite cold, so many people were drinking something warm. We had utensils, food scraps, wax paper, foil, plastic wrapper. So often, I would say most of the garbage is associated with people eating at market. And so Next slide, please. So what we knew we needed to do is think about ways to reduce waste that kind of covered all levels and focused on the market system as a collective rather than individual customers only. I just want to share the schematic of the pavilion. It's kind of a zoomed in version of what Kelly shared previously. We have 6 different waste stations where we currently collect trash and recyclables. And we also have 3 dish return and customer compost stations now. And so it's kind of not, it's kind of a big system, and there's a little bit of space between these stations. So we have to think about how to tackle the problem in an efficient way that's not too labor intensive. Next. So one of the things that I really valued was thinking about the scale, the size of the problem, the amount of gas coming to market, the role of market responsibility in this, and thinking about a collective approach. And that kind of drove us to ask, what can the market as a whole do to reduce waste rather than focusing on individual customers? Next. The primary waste reduction strategies, and I provide that entry points text to kind of, I'm hoping that when I'm telling the story about what we've done with our zero waste project that's Park Foundation funded, you can think about what you can do at your market. And I know that every story is unique. The pathway we took is unique based on like the problems we were facing, but some of the things perhaps are transferable or replicable. So we have food scraps collection, both for the vendors and the customers. We've introduced an innovative reusable dish program that includes forks, cups, plates, and bowls. And, you know, it's a lot to handle, but, you know, just thinking about, oh, well, what if we just had reusable utensils? How would that work? That's like a really nice entry point. And support has been incredibly important. Thinking about, at one point, I felt like the primary partner in my work was the food vendors, recognizing that having a relationship with them that was built on trust, that allowed me to offer suggestions and learn from their business was incredibly important. So they've been a really important stakeholder in this work. Partnerships, including the County Waste Program, Dish Truck, and the local Master Compost Education Program, and of course, grant funding. So these are all like what I see as the waste reduction strategies that have helped this program to be effective. Next. So I want to kind of zoom in a little bit about food scraps compost collection, because I start here because I think that this is actually something that most markets can do, even when there's a small staff. So within your own municipality, you can think about, well, what resources do I have? What are my constraints? What are the opportunities? And if you like, I'm not able to view the chat. Maybe I can if I adjust something. Go ahead and write down whether you know what's happening with compost and food scraps recycling in your municipality. Let's see if I can see the chat. Yeah, so go ahead, please add to the chat any feedback or what you know about your local compost situation, if you'd like. And we know, you know, I think there's a growing awareness among the general population that it's really important to keep organic waste out of the landfill. It's a greenhouse gas accelerator. Next. So I think Kelly touched on a lot of this, and I am seeing some comments in the chat. So I'll go through this slide and then I'll switch the chat. Prior to 2011, I actually learned recently that there was on-site composting, and I think that was primarily food scraps. Maybe it may have also been vegetable waste from the farmers. From 2011 to 2016, the market had a zero waste program, and that was really kind of integrally tied with compostable dishware. It's something that the market as a whole kind of invested in. And unfortunately, that ended when there was the growing recognition that the compostable dishware and the volume of it, the diverse materials weren't breaking down at the local Cayuga Compost, which is a private company, that there's a private-public relationship that governs composting in Tompkins County. And then in 2022, we began back of the house and customer composting. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat. Okay. Pleasantville Farmers Market. Do you know, yeah, so that's awesome. We collect food waste and compostable serviceware. It all goes into the municipalities program. Okay, so that sounds amazing. That's probably similar to what was happening at the Ithaca Farmers Market between 2011 and 2016. Erica of Garden Share Farmers Market. We don't have composting collection here, the colleges do, but on behalf of the 3 villages, I am in quite a distance away. I think that might be possible to partner with the unis though. Yeah, I think partnerships are really incredibly important. And initially we were actually bringing our compost at the farmers market to Cayuga Compost, which is like maybe like a 15-minute drive, and we had to put it in someone's car. But then we realized like, hey, let's ask the county if they can pick it up, because they do have drop spots. And once they started picking up the compost, it kind of really made things feel a lot easier for our team. So partnerships are really important for composting. Thank you, Erica. Okay, next. So what we do, this is just kind of nuts and bolts, because I think composting is like a really easy entry way to increase the sustainability of market, to be a better steward to resources. I bring around a set of buckets. These are just plain 5-gallon buckets to participating food vendors. And at the beginning of the season, I give them a couple of minutes of instruction, which basically consists of like food scraps and napkins only, no wax paper, no paper plates, no boats. So I just tell them what can be included and what shouldn't be included. And we have 8 food vendors participating, and it really does add up to a lot of food waste. In 2022, 241 buckets, 5-gallon buckets, and year to date in 2023, we've collected 134 buckets. And I've listed the partners there. The customer composting collection is a little more problematic. And initially, we were advised not to do it because just the level of contamination that exists, especially because many of the dishware fills and says that it's compostable, but it doesn't break down in the county's cold compost system, so it needs to be kept out. So what is required, and the primary challenge, is frequent and copycat contamination that requires an individual to come by and kind of remove all sorts of things. Compostable dishware is the most frequent thing. Wax paper also ends up in there, and sometimes plastic forks. We have received help from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County, the master compost educators, to come and provide customer education. That's been a really lovely partnership. We come as a team. It's kind of a festive environment. And we've collected 78 buckets in last year and 73 so far this year of customer compost. And with the dish program, I think that more and more food scraps are getting recycled. It's just kind of those two elements of food scrap recycling and using a real dish, they go hand in hand. Next. Oh, I'm also seeing a comment in the chat, Diana Rose in Jamaica, Queens. We have a citywide compost initiative. Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, I think that there's a growing recognition that this is an important way to reduce organics from landfill. So thank you, Diana. So I'm stepping out of the flow of my presentation just to talk about like a simple solution, an easy entry point that's not related to real dishes nor compost, and that's a change in the type of disposable. Kelly mentioned that with the pandemic and the rules that were coming from Tompkins County Health Department, there was like more and more packaging involved. Basically, they had to be closed containers and all the food had to be served to go. And there was just kind of like that residual use of clamshells and large packaging that many vendors were still using in 2022. And so just through ongoing relationship building and understanding their constraints, understanding perhaps what they already had in stock, most vendors are now just using them. Most vendors who were using clamshells are either using real dishes or a simple paper plate to serve the food. And this has made a difference in the amount of trash. Next. Now I want to talk about my favorite part of this, and this is the innovative reusable dish program. And basically I'm using this schematic to kind of represent that it's a cycle, and every market day we kind of go through this cycle, and I'll share pictures from the different components. But basically in the morning, the dish team distributes clean dishes, and we distribute them in 5-gallon buckets that have been sanitized to participating vendors, and there's many participating vendors. The vendors use these dishes throughout the day whenever there's a for here order, and the customers return them to the return station. The dish team at a pre-wash station, we pre-wash the dishes. We don't have the capacity to wash them at market. And so that's like a big goal for our team, is to kind of increase our capacity so that we can wash them at market and turn around those dishes and use them the very same day. So at close up, we've packed up all the dishes as we go, and we pack them into vehicles. We drive them to Cornell Cooperative Extension, has a commercial kitchen where we use the dish room. We wash them, sanitize the buckets, and get them ready for the next day where we're going to distribute them again. So that's the cycle that we go through with the dishes every day. It's pretty straightforward, actually, and it's something that we kind of all would recognize washing a dish at home. Next. So this is kind of how it looks at market. I chose this picture. This is Khmer Anchor, a beloved Cambodian food place. They use about 140 of those black bowls every single day. It's just really lovely. They were an early adopter of the program. I'm so grateful for them because I think that for sure when vendors see that something's working for others, they're more willing to try it for themselves. Okay, next. Customers return the dishes to one of 3 dish returns. And this particular dish return is also where, if you see in the bottom right portion of the photograph, this is also our pre-wash station. And we have a whole system of buckets, maybe about 20 buckets of dishes that, they start off clean. And then as the customers use them, they come back to us dirty. We pre-wash them just to get most of the grime off and pack them into these buckets by type to be washed at a commercial dishwasher. And so we go through this cycle every day. And at this point, I put in a little note to remind myself to acknowledge our project partner Dish Truck, which is run by Joey Gates, a local woman here in Tompkins County, who really kind of played an integral role in helping us figure out like what kind of dish return would work, the use of 5-gallon buckets, which are just really the right size for the heaviness of the dishes, how to pack them, how to engage with a commercial kitchen to get them washed. So it's been really critical and really wonderful to have that partnership. This year, Dish Truck has more of an advisory role, but I'm very grateful for their help. Okay, next. Okay, and so I just wanted to share some pictures of the main waste station and the main dish return. That's the upper right picture. And then a picture that shows the pre-wash station. It's very simple. We don't have, we don't have a huge sink. We don't have a grease trap, but we're able to kind of scrape the food off and then wash them there at market, put them in the buckets. That's one of my lovely assistants from last year. Next. And this is what it looks like at the commercial kitchen. This is also, picture was also taken last year. You see the buckets in the upper left portion of the leftmost picture, some of the dishes we've been using, the silverware. Next. So now I want to step back a little bit and think about, like, I'm trying to move myself out of the weeds, the details of running the dish program, and think about, like, what were we really trying to find out when we decided, hey, we are going to use our strategy for waste reduction is going to be a pilot feasibility study to look at the use of reusable dishes. So first in my mind, and probably first in most stakeholders' minds, the vendors, was, can we actually handle reusable dishes at market? Like, how will that work? You know, how will we create a system that's robust enough that it's not overwhelmed or not breaking down? And I feel like we have demonstrated that it's feasible to do this at market. It's kind of, I think Kelly mentioned that there's 80 to 90 booths that are serving vendors. We have 5,000 guests on the busiest day. It's kind of a big system, but we're able to do it. And certainly we are not meeting all of the dish needs at market. Perhaps we're meeting about 30% of it, but I think we've demonstrated feasibility enough to say, like, okay, this is worth continuing. We've also asked how the system is received by customers, participating vendors, and market as a whole, and then just some quantification of impact. Next. And the customer reception has been amazing. We took these pictures very early on, but we continue to get feedback like this, where customers are just so thrilled to be doing it and to see this, and they're participating as well. Like, every time they're using a dish, they're using a real fork. I feel like they're engaged in this process. They're part of our collective system. And it seems like they love it. Like, sometimes I feel like every market day when I'm at the dish return or the pre-wash station, I hear, like, how does this work? I've never been here. And sometimes, especially when it's hot, I kind of feel like, well, don't you have real dishes at home? So it's really kind of straightforward, but I think it's beautiful in simplicity, and people love it. They love eating food off of real dishes. Okay, next. Oh, we did get a question. How big is your team? So I have a lot of support right now. It's been really wonderful. Last year, I was the primary individual running the dish program, and I got a lot of support from Dish Truck. She was there with me most market days running the program and with me in the dish room. We also had grant funding to hire a zero waste project assistant who works about 5 hours a day. Market runs from 9 to 3 on Saturday. and 10 to 3 on Sunday. So she was with me like 5 hours a day, just handling the volume of dishes. And volume is the operative word here. This year, we also have a youth employment service team, and he's been with us 2 weekends, and he'll continue through the summer and possibly through September. It's been really great to have him. It's pretty easy to learn this work. You're working with your hands. The process is like, the process is just something that you do over and over again. So it's a pretty straightforward process. I think the part of it that's like makes it like really fun and dynamic is the spatial nature of it, because we are serving like multiple vendors, like maybe between 15 and 18 vendors a day. We have food vendors, prepared food vendors. We also have some farm vendors who sell something like apple cider or a cheese plate, and they're using our dishes as well. There's been buy-in at that level as well. And so it's spread out across the market. And although we distribute most of the dishes first thing in the morning, we don't, we often have cups left, and we often have forks left, and sometimes plates or bowls. And we just pay attention to what's coming through the dish system, and we recognize the dishes that folks are using and the types of food. And we have a pretty good sense of like who's doing really well and who might need more dishes today. So I think this early season has been, we've really gotten a handle on that. So it's a much tighter fit. One of the inefficiencies of the system, kind of taking a tangent, but one of the inefficiencies of the system is when I give a vendor, like maybe I'll give them like 40 dishes and then 30 or 20 of them come back. So I think we've gotten a better handle on what vendors are going to use and who might need more forks. And more vendors are hiding their plastic forks and just putting out the real forks. And this has been a huge change. And to me, it's effective, it's impactful, and it also kind of really expresses to me the level of buy-in and trust that the vendors have in this program. Yeah, so it's almost as if it's becoming plastic forks upon request only. And that's a goal I have that I've articulated to the sustainability committee, and I'm still working towards. Is like, you're not going to get a plastic fork unless you really save it, unless you ask for it. Otherwise, it's going to be metal utensils. So I'm looking at the chat. Yes, Erica asked whether the grant funding covered the cost of the dishes and how much cost of losing dishes growing a set of legs. Okay, yes. So Erica, the Park Foundation funding, I feel so grateful that the categories are kind of large. I think when the grant funds were given, we didn't know to the degree that we were gonna embrace a durable dish program and run with it. To me, just looking at the garbage, recognizing that this is single-use disposables, and recognizing that the way to eliminate single-use disposables is to get dishes that you can wash and use again and again. We didn't really have a dish budget, we had a supplies budget, and I'm kind of fiscally conservative, so I definitely thought about okay, well, how can we use this money really well? And so yes, the grant included a supplies budget. I will talk a little bit later about the number of dishes that we're using, and you'll see that some of the dishes I'm currently using are borrowed from Dish Truck. Yeah, and some of the dishes, some of the plates I bought used. They were plates used in a local cafeteria. I found them on eBay, and some of the plates were purchased or were borrowed. All of the bowls I had to buy, so that's kind of new material. And the forks. So the forks is a really great story because they're just direct plastic if we're using disposables. The forks, half of them are borrowed and half of them are from reuse. And there was a period where I knew I needed more forks. It was just really ramping up, and I would go to our reuse center every week and buy 100 more or so. So thank you for your question, Erica. Yeah, so this is the vendor reception. Last September, I was feeling like, oh, everyone who can participate is participating pretty much across the board. There may be an exception. But this season, I've had more farmers decide like, hey, I have this apple cider, can I have cups for it? And I'm like, yes, of course. So we have even more vendors participating this year, and customers are certainly following their lead. I think one of the things that I felt, now it seems so little, but one of the things that I felt troubled by, like near the end of last season, I should say we started in August of 2022 or July 31st is when we really started doing the dishes. We realized, okay, we've done enough with recycling and compost. It's time to take the next step. One of the things that I felt challenged by was like how vendors presented the dishes to customers, whether they mentioned having dishes at all, whether they said, oh, it's a for here order, here's the dish. Whether they said, oh, would you like this plastic disposable dish, or would you like this durable dish, or, you know, how they presented it. And I felt like I was seeing some differences in the level or the level of customer buy-in, maybe related to that. And as soon as there was at least 2 or 3 vendors that as soon as they started saying, well, is this for here or are you leaving market? And if it was for here, they used a real dish. And those were kind of like phase change decisions. And as soon as the vendor started changing the way they spoke about it, and you know, maybe there was also a recognition of, hey, the dish returns aren't so hard to find, they're next to waste stations, because initially there definitely was a trepidation of like, what do I do with this dish when I'm done with it? Where do I return it? And with such a busy market and limited selling hours, you don't want to spend an extra 20 seconds describing the location of the dish return. And oftentimes it was to guests of like, well, what do you mean a dock? Where it's next to the dock? Where's the dock? You know, so we really had to like increase our the signage around dish returns. So I think the customers are following the lead. That's what the dish numbers tell me. Next. And so these are the dish numbers. I actually gave some of these slides last night, and it was in this kind of movie theater thing. And so this slide was like as big as like, I don't know, 50 feet by maybe 50 feet wide. So it was really huge. And I'm just going to give you a moment to look at it. And then I'll speak about what I'm seeing in the numbers. So we've really been able to double the number of plates we use since last year. I think the cup numbers are growing. This is an average, and we had some lower numbers early in April. We've definitely doubled the number of utensils used. One of the things that we haven't increased is the bowls. That's all of those bowls I had to buy new. And yeah, I think if I were going to make more purchases, I would think about buying more bowls. Most of the dishes are melamine dishes, and the bowls seem to be a little more expensive. And we also can't fit as many in the 5-gallon buckets. We can't fit as many in the dishwashing trays. So they're a little less efficient to use bowls, but many of the vendors, a nice shallow dinner bowl really kind of is the ideal dish for them. And yeah, actually, that's one thing I should have mentioned is early on, we talked to vendors about what kind of dish do you need and what size. And we also thought about what resources we currently had with Dish Truck, our partner. And I just want to point out that this year, we've already diverted 29,000 disposables from the landfill. And these are disposables that didn't have to be created. There was no resource extraction. There was no fossil fuels involved in transporting them, and then their disposal in a landfill. This is 20,000 items. And since the program start almost 1 year ago, it's been over 51,000. Next. Oh, can you go back to the last slide, Kelly? So I just want to say that you might ask, where did all these items come from? There was a question of grant funding. So the plates, half of them are borrowed and half were purchased used on eBay. I found a really nice dish that the local Ithaca College cafeteria uses, and I recognize, oh, this would work very well in the dish program, and we were able to find it on eBay. The bowls were all purchased new. The cups, half were purchased new and half are borrowed from our partner Dish Truck. The utensils, I have maybe, I have a little more. I have maybe 800. The average is not the maximum. Forks and spoons, most of them are forks. Half are borrowed from Dish Truck and half came from local reuse. And they set their prices at 25 cents per fork. So it's not a ton of money required to get the dishes. Next. And so another question we asked is like, are we making a difference in the trash? And we are. The red line is the trash volume measured in number of 65-gallon bags. That's the tote size this year. The blue number is last year between the dates of April 1st and July 16th. And I kind of aligned those dates to compare them. Yeah. And the green line, so both the red line and the blue line are actual measurements. Those are trash bags that we counted. The green line is an estimate of the waste displaced by using reusable dishes. It's an estimate of how much more trash we would have had if we weren't washing dishes. That's just based on using our knowledge of how much a bag of trash holds, how many dishes, and then extrapolating it from there. So there is some noise early in the season. We had a lot of early in the season of 2023 on the last slide. You can see that sometimes there was actually less. You can see sometimes this in early April, the shoulder season, we actually had kind of a busy shoulder season, and there was a lot of trash in April. In fact, sometimes we had more trash on a given date than in 2022. You might see that one peak. I think that it's possible that in 2022, that was a rainy day. And this year it was a beautiful day. There was a couple days I had helpers helping me with the trash. And I know like the individuals on my team, we really try to like make sure that the trash bag is full before we change it. And sometimes when you have help, you just say, thank you for helping me so I don't have to do this trash. So the numbers might, there might be a little noise in the data because of that. Next. So I just want to turn back to this slide, thinking about impact. And now when I look at this picture of what's in a garbage bag, it looks like child's play to me. Like our program has been so impactful. Next slide. And that this is what it looks like, the number of dishes we're washing, and it's like far exceeds, like I would say that this is like maybe 3 bags worth of dishes. This is our dish room, as well as all of the drying space we use. The front right of the frame those are all metal forks that were used that day. The black bowls from the Cambodian food. Behind it, you see plates and bowls, and then the cups lining up, and then we have plates and bowls behind that as well. All right, next. So we had an end of season survey last year and an end of year report to the funders, and we recognize that although we can say, hey, it's going well, like there definitely are challenges. These are some things that the vendors articulated as well as we articulated in the report. Just a need for more signage about the location of the dish return. And we've been able to do that. More communication to the community as a whole. And We have had a press release about it. I actually kind of feel like every single one of those 51,000 plates, forks, bowls, cups is a communication to a customer. But if you're not at the farmer's market, maybe you don't know about whether the dish program is running. So I think I see a need for more communication with the community as a whole. We definitely do have capacity constraints. Currently, our team is like kind of at our capacity, transportation capacity, the number of dishes that I want to care for and store capacity. But we recognize that this capacity limit is going to be lifted when we gain the ability to wash dishes on site. Currently, we're really limited by having to pack up all the dishes at the end of the day, drive them over to a commercial kitchen, run them through a dishwasher, which with 1,000 dishes, that can take a couple hours, pack them up again and bring them to our staging area for the next market day. So we recognize that what we all hope for is an ability to wash dishes at market, and then identifying ways to make the system more efficient. Next. And thank you, Erica. I am gonna, there is a slide that answers your questions about how to wash dishes on site. So our goals for 2023, again, identifying ways to make the system more efficient. And I've had some help with that. And one of the ways that it's more efficient is now I have hot water. And so now I'm pre-washing the dishes in hot water rather than cold, and that makes it so much easier. I've also kind of improved my signage system. That's been huge. I've like, I think there's more members of our team. That's helped a lot, so we can rest when we need to. And everyone is cross-trained. Everyone on the team, they start off maybe pre-washing the dishes, which is a pretty kind of static activity, and they grow and grow, and yeah. And finally, we want to identify ways to institutionalize the work to ensure its long-term sustainability at market. That's the big goal for this year. And that's what we told Park Foundation we want to do. Thank you. Next slide. And so what evidence do I have to be hopeful that that on-site dishwashing will happen? Now in conversations about the renovation of our pavilion, and we are having lots of conversations about the renovation of the pavilion. They're including a dish room, and I have a picture of the schematic that kind of was used during these conversations, and the dish room is right there, and it just brings me so much hope to see that, because I know that it's going to make things a lot easier and make it so that we can really possibly wash 2 or 3 times the amount of dishes that we are now. Also, having financial support that's maybe not solely dependent on grant funds would be great. Having some elements included in an operating budget would be great. And the dish room. Okay, next. I just have a couple more slides. Yeah, and so community members are recognizing that this is valuable. And some feedback I got from our presentation last night is, hey, think about replicability of this project and how you can kind of leverage replicability to both increase your impact beyond market as well as to get grant funds. She didn't say that. In purple is what she said, but that was my interpretation of it. It's like thinking about replicability would be really important. And so I included that quote here because I feel like I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about what we're doing here at the farmers market with Market to You. I understand there's a lot of market managers here, so I want you to know like what's possible. I understand that the path we took was kind of specific to our situation, the partnerships we formed, the resources that we had, the grant funding. But I think there's a lot of things that you can do as well. Next slide. So I just wanted to leave you all with this about what you can do is to think about like articulating the problem. And Kelly spoke about that a little bit. For me, I kind of was grounded when I opened the trash. Think about what resources and opportunities and barriers you have for food scraps recycling. Possible solutions related to dishware if like farmers market trash, your trash is mostly single-use disposables, then dishware seems like a great solution. And just kind of understanding the context of your customers and the community. Next slide. And this, I just want to leave you with this that says like, look how beautiful the food looks on real dishes. Yeah, that's all I have. I'm reading some notes in the chat. Yeah. Yeah. So I really appreciate James' comment about like thinking about like the energy expended with the transportation, the hot water, the sterilization, the human effort. That's a really important question. And there is like some data online you can Google, like how many times do you need to wash a dish before it's the amount of resources used for creation of it, transport of it, washing it, has replaced just using a paper plate, you know, because like a paper plate, it's much cheaper to make, cheaper to transport. And I think the number is actually surprisingly large. I don't know if it's like 80 or so. So every day we use these dishes, we're getting to that point. I'll have to look it up again. It's not at the top of my head. And I just want to say, like, in terms of human energy, one of the things that I feel like I'm doing with this program is I'm really like, so this is dishwashing, you know, this is like a working class solution. And I think that when we think about environmental problems and problems with waste, we often think about high-tech engineering solutions. What material can we make that's going to break down in the environment faster, or made from some organic source, or solutions related to individual behavior. How can we get the customers to like change their behavior and not eat so much food, or, you know, or not use so many plates? I don't know. And I kind of feel like what's really helped me to do this work is to recognize like, hey, this is a collective problem, and the farmers market is just kind of a microcosm of it. This is a collective problem, and a labor-based solution is completely valid. And to recognize the dignity of labor in this work is completely, it's really important. You know, I know I'm very lucky to live in a kind of a liberal place that I have a lot of young people who are willing to work with me. They value reducing waste and they think it's worthwhile. I think I can recognize that if I wasn't able to interview and hire and have people join my team, I definitely would be probably saying something different right now about how hard it is. But we've been very lucky that people do want to work with us. So looking at some comments. Yeah, so I feel like my presentation's done, unless there's any questions. I'm looking at the chat. I don't really, this is the first time I've been to one of your meetings, so I don't know if you open up the floor, or I'm gonna let the host take it from here.
Are you still there, Diane? Thank you, Judy, for sharing all of that. And I think I think all the markets have like a different amount of, a budget, but I will say that I don't, it's not like we're getting millions of dollars from the Park Foundation to implement this program. It's a relatively small amount of money, and you've definitely worked some miracles with the amount of resources and money that we've had to use on this project. I don't know if Diana had her hand up. I don't know if that was, you can feel, I think, yeah, there you go.
Hi,
You
good
feel free, go ahead, Sam.
Thank you for the presentation. So we are located at the Laurelton Farmers Market in Jamaica, Queens, New York. And there is a company called, I think it's Cup Zero, that will provide reusable cups. And it takes away a lot of the stress and the market. We also own a commercial kitchen. So you're talking, we're in a 2-mile radius from the market. So we understand that the operation firsthand. But I think even for us, we use like a third party or a partnership with Cup Zero that's based in New York City, and they'll come when we have larger events, because sometimes people just want to grab and go at the market. But when we do have larger events, like our last event, we had over 3,000 people come out for Juneteenth, and they brought their cups, they brought their operation, and they set up, and we try to build them into the sustainability program of it to have them actually there and participate, and just talk about the education around sustainability. And they take their cups and they go, and we don't have to worry about washing, drying, none of that, wasting, additional resources that we would have to now expense. So maybe if you're not able to build that operation, I'm sorry, let me be nice and come on camera. Maybe if you're not able to build that operation, maybe finding a local, business that is already doing that and it's built into their operation already.
Yeah. I love that idea. And, one of our project partners, both last year and this year, they're called Dish Truck. I mentioned them, and that's kind of what they do to like events and parties. They bring the dishes at the morning, they set up a dish return station, and then at the end of the event, they take them away and wash them for the next event. I think it's a really beautiful model. I kind of think that I haven't figured out like if we paid for something like that. And Ithaca's kind of a small community, so Dish Truck is the only one around. If we paid for something like that, how much would it be? So that's another like entry point, is like using outside service to say like, well, how will this work? And you probably have experienced the same thing as me, is customers love it. Like, oh yes, thank you, I got to use a real dish. I don't have to like have that like ping of guilt of like, what do I do with this thing that's going to be around forever now? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's really a great opportunity to just share with the community and build sustainability in that way at the market. So that was my little 2 cents.
Thank you, Diana.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all that we have for today. So I'm sure Diane can share our contact information as well if there's any further questions. But I know we actually have a Tuesday market today, so we're gonna get running to go do Tuesday market. But thank you so much, everyone, and of course, thank you, Judy, and thank you, Diane. I don't know if you have any closing remarks, but I guess we will close it out from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
you.